Wee. Wee. Let's ride the Ferris wheel. Wee. Let's ride the water slide. Wee. Clean coal. Mr. Clean Coal, Polzigo. Give me a break. Give me a break. You missed me? Well, you got no excuse to miss me. I'm around all the time. Very rarely am I not around. Still light out, yeah? It looks like it, doesn't it? It would appear that way, wouldn't it? Hello from Israel. Oh my God, Israel, please. Can you please stop with the Palestinians? Just give them Gaza and the West Bank and all that. Let them have their own little nation, please. Thank you. Sincerely, everybody in the fucking civilized world. Could you stop, like, stealing their houses, too? Thank you. Be nice. Sincerely, everyone in the world with a fucking conscience. That'd be great. Much appreciated if you could go ahead and do that. Yeah, Stevie's got the most experience out of all of us playing D&D, so he's always fun to play with. And kind of necessary to settle some of the rules disputes and shit. I recommend listening to Frank Herbert's 1969 interview. He's a genius. A genius. What are we doing here? What's everybody doing? Everybody's like giving a rundown of their shit today. I went on a boat once. I like turtles. I just watched Terminator. I like turtles. Playing Super Mario World. Hey, good on you, buddy. It's a good game. Good old Super Mario World. I remember the first time Super Mario World is the SNES one, right? Or is that the N64 one? No, that's Mario 64. Yeah, Super Mario World. Dude, I will never forget the first time I ever saw a Super Nintendo in action. It was like, dude, living at that time, like being into video games when they used to be just like pixels. You know what I mean? Like you literally had like some games where you played one pixel. And I was into video games early, like pre-NES and stuff. So coming from the NES, there are two things I remember as a kid that just like slapped me upside the head. I remember the first thing was I went over to I used to have this rich friend whose dad was superintendent of schools and shit. I went over to his house one day and he just gotten a Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog. And I swear to God, you can look at that game now and it doesn't look all that impressive, but that game, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Like, I literally could not believe what I was looking at. I couldn't believe that a video game could look so cool and move so fast and have so many things going on and have such a cool, high quality central character, like, you know, resolution wise, animation wise, and all that. Like, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And then I remember I can't remember why we were there. I think we were there to get like one of my little sisters a birthday present or something. And we went into Toys R Us, which, as far as I know now, are kind of defunct, right? As like storefronts. I know you can probably still order like shit from Toys R Us online or whatever, but I'm pretty sure most of the storefronts of Toys R Us are long gone. But we were walking around Toys R Us, and they had a little kiosk set up with Super Mario World. And once again, like, I felt the same way. I looked at it and I was like, there's no way. There's no way a video game could look this good and be this fast and smooth and have this cool of animation and have this much character. It was just like mind blowing. The only other time that happened to me in my life was way later. I was probably in my like late teens or very early 20s. I remember a friend of mine rented an Xbox when it first came out. Something you used to be able to do from like Blockbuster. You could rent a whole ass console. So he rented an Xbox with 2 controllers and Halo. And I remember from the very second he booted that shit up to like every second that we played of it, I could not believe it was a video game that existed. Like the shit that's like totally expected now, you know, jumping in and out of vehicles and, you know, massively multiplayer kind of matches with vehicles involved, and, you know, turret emplacements, multiple people per vehicle, that sort of thing. Like, you know, you find that in a lot of games. I'd never seen anything like that in a video game. It was like next level immersive to be able to sit there and play with your friends. Yeah, that's Halo. Halo Combat Evolved or whatever. Just like the opening Gregorian chant or whatever. You know? To like the action, how fluid it was, how well it controlled, how well it ran on that machine. It's unbelievable. I think I had one more like kind of thing like that, because I grew up loving the Final Fantasy games. Even though I never owned a Super Nintendo, one of my favorite things to do would be to go to my friend Waylon's house, and on the Super Nintendo, the second player can control a character in combat, and we would always name the characters after our favorite characters. So Waylon would name himself after the thief guy, would change the thief guy's name. I was always the sword tech guy in Final Fantasy 3, I guess 6 technically, but 3 here in the United States. And when we got well, I guess I did have a couple more moments like that where I was just blown away by what was doable. One of their video games just like blew my mind. Metal Gear Solid. I didn't know games could have a narrative like that. Like, I didn't know games could be that absorbing narratively. And then the kind of weird shit where you had to... You remember the gimmick? You had to switch your controller port to beat Psycho Mantis. The bosses, the dialogue, dude, I was all invested. You know, probably, like... And it was not an RPG. That's kind of what made it distinct. I mean, to just put a button on that, on the PlayStation 1, Final Fantasy 7. GTA, GTA blew my mind, but I'm telling you, the game that blew my mind even more, and I would not recommend that you try and play this. On the PS1, there was this game called Driver, and the video game itself sucked. But there was like a free mode where you could just drive around the streets and see how long you could outrun the cops. That was basically the whole mode. And I would play that. Me and my roommate Rodney at the time, while I was living in Arizona, I would play that for hours. And like just hours and hours and hours and hours running from the cops. Like, how long can you go before the cops destroy you? Oh my God. Well, so here's the thing. Yes, I agree. In comparison, Driver's not a great game. But when GTA came along, instead of like, oh my God, my mind is blown, it was more like a uh-huh. Because I saw that the nascent beginnings of that in Driver, for sure. It's like this open world thing where there's NPCs and other drivers and cops, and you can get out of the car and get in another car and blah, 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 right? As rudimentary as it was kind of like a, yeah. When Grand Theft Auto 3 happened, I was just like, yep. It was only a matter of time before somebody just polished this up and made it better. I remember Final Fantasy X blowing my mind as well. Like, well, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and 10 are, in my opinion, the greatest RPGs ever made. I don't know how I'd order them. I'd probably put Final Fantasy 9 at the top of the heap. You could argue with me all day, but that run of RPGs is some of the most beautiful, awesome, genre-defining, turn-based combat JRPG shit that you can find on the planet. And to this day, in my opinion, they really haven't matched it. Mm-mm. 9. Dude, Final Fantasy 9 is perfect for me. Because here's the thing. I was one of those people that immediately didn't like 8. Because 8 tried to go for this way less cartoony, way more cinematic view, whereas 7 had this kind of like blocky, chibi kind of view. And I felt like 9 perfectly crossed those two things. It was still cartoony enough to be whimsical and fantastical and stuff, but it was a little edged up. But it wasn't like full-blown, like, you know, max anime edge like Final Fantasy VIII was. Now, I went back and, you know, learned to appreciate 8 because it was one of the only games I owned for a long time when I was really poor. And so Final Fantasy VIII was on the menu, and I beat the fuck out of that game. I'm trying to remember other games that just blew my mind the first time I played them. For whatever reason, whether it was the gameplay or the graphics or the narrative or whatever. I mean, going back to like the computer days, Diablo. The first time I loaded into Diablo, played it for a little while, was running around in my little open game, and somebody showed up out of nowhere that was a player and killed me and took all my shit. I was lost. Like that game utterly changed my, like, what I expected from video games. I was just like, well, no other game is ever gonna feel like that again. And I was right, kinda. Ultima. That was you. That's okay, Johnny. You don't gotta apologize. Changed my world. I liked the Legacy of Kain games, but I wasn't as into them as other people were. Dude, there's this one quirky little JRPG that blew my mind when I played it as a kid, and I still can't get enough of it as an adult. I'll play like an emulated version of it anytime. Lunar, the Silver Star. It's an old ass game. It's so generic. D, come here. Come here. Sit down and be quiet, or you're going inside. Nope. You be quiet. Yeah, Lunar. It was a very generic game. had a very generic storyline and very generic like player characters and archetypes and stuff. But oh man, it was just a header. That was cool. I'm trying to get this phone to sit in a way. But anyway, yeah, definitely a good game. Didn't blow my mind though. No, Lunar was for the Sega CD. I guess maybe they released it on the PS1. But I think they released Lunar 2 Eternal Blue on the PS1. I don't know if they ever released Lunar 1 because I played it on the Sega CD. Which game console had the best startup music? I gotta give it to Nintendo GameCube, dude. Dude, that shit was like, I gotta give it to that, dude. PS2 is great, but it like wore off. I don't know. It didn't maintain the same charm as that did. That little GameCube jingle, man. Yeah, PS1 did have a good one. That'd probably be my second one, would be PS1. GameCube, then PS1, then everybody else. Then it doesn't matter. It's like, whoa. I wish I still had my GameCube, man. I sold my GameCube to a chick I worked with at Starbucks because, and like, I wasn't like pressed into doing it. It was just like I wasn't playing it anymore, and she was at work talking about how she was having a hard time getting presents for her kids for Christmas, and so I cut her a deal on my GameCube, all my games, both my controllers and shit, because I just wasn't playing it anymore. Like at that point, I was playing PC games again, and I didn't want my game. I wish I would have held on to it though, because I would definitely hook that up. It had some great games too. I had Eternal Darkness, which is like probably my favorite survival horror game ever made. I had I really liked it, even though a lot of people hated it. I had what was it, F-Zero, whatever the F-Zero was on GameCube. Super Mario Sunshine, the first Animal Crossing. I had all these games. Yep, I had Metroid Prime. I'm trying to remember what other games I had on the GameCube. Resident Evil 0. Wind Waker. I think I sold her all of those games, my GameCube and both my Cube controllers, and there's probably a couple that I'm forgetting, for $100. So back in like would have been like 2007. Dude, I sold my GameCube. I had a silver GameCube. I had a factory silver GameCube with 2 controllers and all the games that I just listed. And I sold that for $100 in 2008. Whoops. Yeah, those kids did have a dope-ass Christmas, so I guess it's worth it. Yeah. GameCube is definitely one of my favorite consoles. It's a weird one. It's a standout console. Speaking of games that blew my mind the first time I played them, Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Dude, I scoffed at pictures of that game. Scoffed at pictures of that game. I just like pish-poshed that game away because I'd seen it in magazines. And then I saw one of my friends brought it over and popped it into my GameCube. and I went out and bought it the next day. I could not believe how that game looked. It's another game. Time Splitters, yeah. Time Splitters was good. Didn't really blow my mind, but I came from PC shooters, you know? And so, like, it was kind of hard for console shooters to impress me. I played Doom, Doom 2, fucking, you know, Unreal Tournament all the way through Quake. So you know, it was kind of an uphill battle for a console shooter to blow my mind, but speaking of Quake, that game just utterly blew my mind. I thought it was the most realistic game that ever existed. And if you look at it now, it's pretty laughable. But I remember talking to my friends about how real it looked and how fucking awesome it was. It really is a fun game, too. Great soundtrack, too. Had a soundtrack completely done, like, in this weird industrial ambient by 9 Inch Nails. It is dope. It's like the game was made for me. I was a huge 9 Inch Nails fan at the time. Yeah, Team Fortress. I didn't really get into Team Fortress. I played I'll tell you the, like, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but there was an Unreal Tournament game that I could have waxed your ass in. Oh, guaranteed. It's probably the best I ever was at multiplayer first-person shooter games, was when I was playing that game. Dude, I was real good. I think it was Unreal Tournament 4. So I was playing it, would have been around like 2004, 2003, somewhere in there maybe. So I think it was 4. Dude, I was good in that game. There's only 2 games that I will ever like genuinely, honestly put my money down that I could probably beat 99% of the population in. At my peak, Unreal Tournament, and at my peak, fucking James Bond. Which one was that? Agent Under Fire. I was unstoppable at that game. Dude, I literally never met a person that could beat me. I've bragged about this before, but since we're on the subject, allow me to brag about it again. So here's what happened. Agent Under Fire was a pretty standard console shooter, but it had a really great multiplayer mode that had the most abusable gadget, a couple of the most abusable gadgets, in my opinion, in the history of video gaming that I just learned to abuse and nobody else could get as good with them. It had a grappling hook that you could shoot at a distant wall, and then it was fire and forget. You just held down the button, and you could turn around and fire while you were being pulled up, and then, you know, by the time you're halfway there, you can shoot another one and be heading another way. It was basically flight. Like, the people I played against used to call me Spider-Man when I played, because I was just could zip around the room. They could never get a beat on me. There was a jetpack, which wasn't as good. I preferred the grappling hook, but if you gave me a jetpack, I was going to win, because it was basically the same thing. Limited flight, short hops. You couldn't get into the little nooks and crannies like you could with the grappling hook, though. And then the missile launcher had an alt fire that would fire a slower missile and then would track your cursor. So what I would do is get the missile launcher, zip up into a top corner of the map where nobody's looking, fire one of those slow missiles, and just follow them with my with my shit. Follow them with the little cursor. Instant kill every time. When they would find me, like 2 or 3 of them would come after me, I would just switch spots. I'd go to another hiding spot. I would lay mines all over the map because I wasn't using the ground. I was unstoppable. So eventually it came to the point where nobody wanted to play because I won every game. And so in order to get people to play me, I was like, I'll take you guys 2-on-1. They were like, what do you mean? I was like, you guys don't shoot. There was no facility for this in the game. It was only just like team deathmatch or whatever the fuck. It was just deathmatch, a free for all or whatever. And they'd be like 2-on-1, and so they would get to limit certain things. So we always thought it was fair that they could turn off the grappling hook, which left with the jetpack, or turn off the jetpack, which left the grappling hook, and they could make a decision what kind of weapons they wanted to play with. So if they didn't want missile launchers, they would just not put heavy weapons. And so that's usually what happened. They would turn off the grapple and put it on like light weapons or something. And I would just run train, because that was just better. So I would routinely, I don't think they ever beat me in a team up. I would just routinely beat them 2v1. You know another game I was kind of good at? The first Dragon Ball Budokai. I was kind of good at that game. I don't think you can run train alone. You've never seen me play Agent Under Fire, my friend. That's all I got to say. The only reason you don't know is because you've never seen me play Agent Under Fire. Yeah, Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the first one. And I want to see if you guys can guess who I played as, because I was really good at Budokai, and I had one character that I stuck to all the time. Everybody hated me for picking him. Which character did Paul play in Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the first one? A fat character? No. Destructo Disc. Krillin. Yeah, that one had Hercule. Yeah. I had a pocket Hercule. I bust out the Hercule when people got tired of losing to my Krillin. His name is Mr. Satan. Well, his name in the video game was Hercule. Did you ever have a Dreamcast? No. I had a friend that had a Dreamcast. And we would play... what's that fucking fighting game franchise? A Tale of Souls and Swords. Soul Calibur. Yeah. We play Soul Calibur. That's another game, that first game, that I was pretty good at, dude. Not a lot of people could see my Voldo. I had a nasty, nasty, nasty Bobasti Voldo, dude. A Tale of Souls and Swords, eternally retold. Big on Mortal Kombat, yeah. All starting from 1, and I played a lot of arcade Mortal Kombat too. So big into stand-up Mortal Kombat. 1, 2, and 3. Played a lot of Samurai Showdown in the arcades as well. 1 and 2. I didn't play as much Killer Instinct, but I did play quite a bit of it. Is that other fighter Dead or Alive? There was a bunch of them, dude. There was Dead or Alive, and there was Virtua Fighter. There's a number of fighting games from back then. I was never really good at most of them, but I was pretty good at Soul Calibur 1, Budokai, and I don't know. I feel like I was kind of maybe sort of decent at Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, like the earlier ones. So yeah, my go-to fighters. So Budokai was Krillin. Mortal Kombat. I don't know because they added to the roster in the first one. Even though his fatality was the worst in the game, I played a lot of Liu Kang because he was just so fast. Like he was incredibly fast and incredibly hard to, like keep out. And so Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2, I really learned Shang Tsung. And that meant learning 4 or 5 at least of the other characters. So when I transformed into them, I could do other things. But I got really good with Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 2. 3, I was kind of getting out of it by then, honestly. Street Fighter 1, I probably was like most consistently a Dalsum player. 2, Zangief probably. Eternal Champions. Yeah, I played Eternal Champions. Dude, the fatalities in that were impossible to pull off unless you had a fucking guide. It was ridiculous. Trying to figure out, because every stage had a fatality that you could pull off, but you had to do a certain thing. You had to beat the person in a certain area and with a certain type of attack. And it was bullshit. Clay Fighter, that game was a meme. Yeah, you had to have a subscription to some magazine or something that gave you a whole write-up on Eternal Champions and told you how to do it. Getting an Ultra Combo and Killer Instinct. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. Well, that was how that was a part of like the cash-in. They used to make games intentionally cryptic so that people would be lured in to buy the strategy guide for the video game. So instead of just going online and finding out how to do it real quick, we used to have to go to like GameStop and buy a $20 fucking strategy guide. Prima was the company that printed them. And all the video game companies were making money hand over fist. Nintendo had official strategy guides that they sold. And their own magazine, Nintendo Power, which they also sold.
That's why all the loot boxes happened, because they couldn't sell the magazines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why there's like all these like microtransactions and loot boxes and stuff in video games now, because like there's really no way to cash in outside people's purchase of the video game. Mm-hmm. Like people are even wary of paying like a monthly fee to play a game now. Mm-hmm. Like you can't even do that. So you got to come up with some kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of a hellscape. I prefer like just one player games, but even they have some shit that creeps in. I upgraded my copy of Death Stranding to the definitive edition when it was on sale or whatever, $5 for the upgrade or whatever. And one of the cool things about it is they removed the Monster Energy cans out of it. Because that was like, there was like some kind of tie-in with Monster Energy, and like you would have Monster Energy sitting in your room and you'd drink it to get extra fucking. Now it's just like a game appropriate brand or whatever.
Yeah.
That game is like so weird. It's like such a combination of zen and utter terror.
Yeah.
Because I'm so greedy.
Yeah.
Like it pays to be greedy in that game. Like load yourself up to the absolute max to where you're this precarious teetering fucking thing on top of you. Because if you can make it, you're gonna get hella points for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up with in some absurd situations because of it. And then it engages this completionist thing in me where I feel like I have to 5-star all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have no idea if that unlocks something later on down the road or if it even matters. But like when there's stars there and I see like 3.5 stars, I'm like, no, no, that's got to be 5. And so I'll just run missions, you know, and it starts to get into this like, it's very zen, but it's one of those games where at any moment you could fuck up. And all of a sudden the game becomes like, oh shit, what do I do now? Yeah, I was an arcade kid. My parents used to, like, it was pretty routine, and this is something a lot of parents did. They would, if they were going to a place, like my parents would go, not frequently, but they'd go to Lake Tahoe or go to Vegas, and we'd go with them. They would just drop us off in the arcade in the casino and give each of us like a roll of quarters and be like, all right, stay here for 3 hours or something. We'll come back and we'll get you for lunch. And so I spent countless, I mean, they would take us to, there was this place in Fresno. It was kind of a drive, so I didn't get to go tons, but I went a bunch, called Blackbeard's, that had this huge warehouse arcade. I spent a lot of time in that, but most of my time playing arcade games was spent in pizza parlors. The Pizza Hut in my town that was walking distance from my house, it was a long walk, but it was worth walking, had a probably 10 or 12 cabinet arcade in it, and then the little round table pizza that was even closer had a 3 cabinet arcade, but they always kept the SNK fighting games and Mortal Kombat. So we would go to one of those. I spent most of my time in those.
I remember when you went to Santa Cruz, you were sad that it was closed.
Yeah, well, it was all COVIDified, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was, I wanted to walk through there. It's not like closed, it just was closed that day.
Yeah.
I'd love to go and, like, try and see if I can go to it now, because, man, that's some definite memories. But there are very few of those types of places left in America. It's one of the reasons I'd like to visit Japan possibly one day. I'd like to go to that, I can't remember the name of the district or whatever. There's like a little district in Tokyo that's dedicated to video games, has tons of like huge arcades in it.
You gotta bring my little sister when she learns her Japanese when she gets to high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she'll have to translate for us.
You gotta put up with any weebing that she does.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like 2 things I want to do in Japan. Maybe 3.
What about the capybaras and the hot springs?
Okay, that 4. Capybara Hot Springs. I want to eat at a high-end sushi place. Mm-hmm. Like Japanese, to see if I like it or not. I want to go to the arcades, and I want to rent one of those, like, karaoke rooms with just me and my friends and family that are there. Mm-hmm. And like have a karaoke jam, and, like in a skyscraper. I think that's pretty cool.
They have the suicide forest there too.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to visit that.
No. Well, gives you a little goosebumps.
It's not that I'm that I think that that I'd be worried about running into like it or that I'm spooked out by it. It's knowing that Jake Paul was there.
Yeah.
Like knowing for sure that he stood on that ground makes me never want to go there. That's enough for me.
Yeah, we forgot the capybaras and the hot springs in that episode.
True. The island overpopulated with domestic deer. Yeah. They also have the bunny island over there.
Mm-hmm.
The escaped lab experiment bunnies.
The Museum of Chemical Weapons or whatever.
Yeah. Why can't we have a party forest or an orgy forest? Why suicide forest? I mean, most forests are party forests and orgy forests by default. So the suicide forest is just a spookier forest.
I'm sure there's still people that have fucked in there.
Probably.
Weirdos.
I would guess so, yeah, you're probably right. No, I don't want a sushi out of a vending machine. I want to go to a high-end sushi joint and get the good stuff made by the people who invented the shit and see for true and proper if I like it or not. Because that's the only way I'm ever going to know if I just ate bad sushi.
Mm-hmm. I tried a Inari the other day. I got myself like a little bento box while you were recording. It's like a fried tofu.
Yeah.
It's like cut open and it's filled with rice.
Huh.
And that's still technically sushi, but it doesn't like have raw fish as like a main component to it.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there's different kinds of sushi, or you can try the nigiri where it's just like a shrimp on a little thing of rice.
Yeah.
It's a cooked shrimp.
I don't know. I just want to try the real deal. Oh, man. All right. Well, I've worn out my